let's go into practice, see what they look like today. Chris Brown, Bills Insider, BuffaloBills.com, is standing by inside the Ad Pro Sports Training Center where the Thursday practice is underway. Good afternoon, Chris. I confess I was hoping we'd get to see you out in the weather today a little bit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm glad we're inside here. It's raining pretty hard outside, and the weather's supposed to deteriorate rest of the week. So they may very well be in here tomorrow again if this kind of weather continues, because the field's pretty sloppy out there. Not sure of footing, so they got him inside here, even though we know that Coach isn't a huge fan of practicing on this turf, knowing it's a little bit tougher on the joints for the players.
What's the vibe from practice? Is there anything unusual going on? Guys practicing, who's in, who's out?
Cody Ford and Levi Wallace are both out of the red non-contact jerseys, so that's a good sign. Whether they're still limited, we'll find out after practice when Thursday's updated report comes out. I can tell you that when the offensive line was lining up for walkthrough, that it was Ty and Secchi with the starting unit at right tackle, not Cody Ford. So I think that's an indication that he's still going to be pretty limited today. And then Shaq Lawson is not here. He has an excused absence due to personal reasons. I believe he had a child, so I believe that's the reason why he's not at practice here today. So congrats to him.
Yeah, and Secchi was out yesterday, just a rest day, though, right? Not his
That's correct.
Chronic knee issues or anything. Okay. Hey, Chris, look, we all look for answers how the Buffalo offense can get better, and you wrote about at BuffaloBills.com one way it could happen, and that's continued development and progress made by the free agent tight end they signed, Tyler Kroft. Only 2 catches last Sunday, but I thought they were 2 meaningful, kind of eye-opening plays. This guy might be a factor in their offensive improvement, huh?
Yeah, I think it's an element that we're still waiting to see just exactly what it can be for this offense, but I don't think there's any mistake as to why they signed him. It's because they needed a weapon, a proven weapon in the passing game, and yes, I know he was largely a number 2 tight end in Cincinnati behind Tyler Eifert, but you know, when he did get the opportunity to start, when Eifert missed almost the entire season in 2017, he delivered. He had 42 catches for almost 400 yards and 7 touchdowns. You know, in an offense that clearly goes through A.J. Green in the passing game, or at least had in the past. So I think they believe he can get to that level here in the time that's left. Now, how much will that balance out between him and maybe Dawson Knox? I think that could be largely determined based on who looks better in practice during the given week, because Coach McDermott still maintains that you earn the time you get on the field on Sundays. But I think Kroft is probably option 1 at the tight end position for this passing game. And it was pretty eye-opening for me to hear Josh Allen say he has complete trust in Tyler Kroft in terms of being a route runner. And I talked to Tyler yesterday, and I kind of shed some light on this in the story that I wrote about Kroft and how he is coming on as an emerging weapon in this offense. Kroft says he not only talks to Josh at practice about what he's seeing from the defense, or in the last 2 games, what he's seeing from the defense, so they can kind of collaborate and get on the same page. He actually goes over practice and game tape with Josh, saying maybe not the entire game, but certain plays and stuff. What did you see on this route when you targeted me? It's very clear that Tyler is concerned about the time he missed in the spring with the fractured foot and in training camp, and it's clear he's trying to make up for that lost time to shorten the learning curve in terms of developing a rapport with Josh on the field during games.
You know, fans who developed an affinity for Dawson Knox in late preseason and early regular season, there's nothing to be worried about there. They are a multiple tight end offense, right? Knox got plenty of snaps this past week, 45% of the offensive snaps, and even Lee Smith was in on like a third of the snaps. They'll use 3 tight ends a lot, and will continue to do so, I believe.
Yeah, and I believe that as this offense continues to unfold, develop, move forward, that I wouldn't be surprised if we see Dawson Knox and Tyler Kroft detached as part of some spread looks. So even though in the book it'll go down as 12 personnel with 1 back and 2 tight ends, you could very well have a spread look with 2 wide receivers out wide, and then those 2 tight ends detached in kind of a hybrid type slot, double slot look. And then who knows, they may even motion the running back out of the backfield and go empty. So I think those are just some of the options that are at Brian Daboll's disposal to use in a given week if he likes the matchups against a given opponent.
Well, you look back at the weeks 1 and 2, and the Bills
Yep.
did a lot in week 1 where they brought a bunch of guys in and then broke the formation, changed the strength of the formation. They did a lot of motion pre-snap, and they did a lot of, like, big tight ends lined up wide, small wide receivers lined up close and tight, and bunch formations. They moved guys around. They really made it difficult to find specific guys in the formations. Tyler Kroft's just one more way that they can do that, particularly since he has that receiving element like a Dawson Knox does to get down the field.
Right, and I think they want to have another guy that can work the middle of the field with Cole Beasley, and we saw elements of that in last week's game plan with Tyler Kroft, because he was in 3 of his 4 targets, he was targeted over the middle. So the big 20-yarder was out on the right side of the field near the near sideline for the Bills. And I kind of foresee him working in between the numbers more often than not to be a second-level target for Josh Allen, with Cole Beasley running more of the underneath type stuff.
Chris Brown, Bills Insider, BuffaloBills.com, on the sidelines at practice inside the Pro Sports Training Center as the Bills are getting their Thursday workout in. We talk a lot about answers for this offense, and here's one for you. Devin Singletary, the motor, who clearly, he got a lot of snaps and not a lot of touches this past week, but I'm guessing here, I'm going to throw this out there. I bet there were at least a half a dozen, maybe more situations where the Bills split Devin Singletary out wide as a receiver. I think more of that is going to be coming too, as a matter of fact. Chris, what do you think?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a lot more of him, because I think he can be a difference maker for this offense. I still am not sure that the fan base has a full handle on what he is capable of, just because they haven't seen as much of him as maybe we have in the practice setting or in the training camp setting. And that's not a knock on them, but to give them the full picture, I don't think they've seen the full picture of what he can deliver. And I know there are fans that, even though they haven't seen a lot of him, they've seen enough of him to know they want to see more.
Yeah, that's not the fans' fault. Let's start using him. It's mid-season here.
Exactly. So I think they've got to give him a little more rope, give him a little more opportunity, and I think the Bills will be pleasantly surprised in the production they get out of him if in fact they do that. So it's interesting to me that last year, 2018, on defense, the Bills were not shy at all about putting a ton of youth on the field, be it rookie, be it second year, be it guys without a lot of game experience. They threw them out on the field and put them in the deep end of the pool. We're halfway through the season, as you pointed out, Murph. It's time to throw Devin Singletary in the deep end of the pool and see if he can swim with everything that's handed to him.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's also a point, like last year, they had no other choice. It was time to move on. They were 2-7 at one point last year, and they wanted to find out about some guys. This is a much different atmosphere at 5-2, headed into the week 8 of the season. There's no reason to hurry it, particularly when if they don't need him to win game. Now, you can make the argument they really needed him last week. He got 8 touches in the second half last week as opposed to 1 in the first half. So when that game got out of hand, Devin Singletary got a lot of touches. And I think what happens is they don't want to unfurl him completely until they need to and when they get into a spot where he can help.
Steve and Chris, I disagree.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with that.
Yeah, me too. Let me go first. I got a reason to disagree. They average 19 points scored per game. They're, the 23rd ranked offense. Let's go. It's midseason. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I said I believe can be a difference maker. And for an offense that desperately needs to score more points, when he's been given an opportunity, he's delivered. He's had touchdowns. He's only got 1 receiving and 1 rushing due to lack of time with the ball in his hands and because he missed 4 games. But in the brief times that he's had the ball in his hands, he's been extraordinarily productive. So give it to him more and see if he gives you more production. If he doesn't and he shows he can't handle it or he's missing assignments, that's one thing. But we haven't seen that yet. So put more on his plate, let him sink or swim, and see where it goes. But I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised, and I think he is going to deliver for this offense. And for an offense that needs more points, give it to the guy that can give you more points in certain situations, as evidenced by last week's game and what he did there.
Yeah, he's played in 3.5 games. If you take the last half or whatever it was in the Giants came out, he's only got 29 touches.
Yeah.
And man, oh man, you'd love to see. And
it's
8
not
of them were
enough,
this last week.
Yeah, it's not enough, and outside of John Brown and Cole Beasley, who's starting to pick up some steam here, especially in the red area the last 2 games, you really don't have super dynamic players that are going to make a defense look bad. I think Devin Singletary has the capability of doing that. Yes, you have your bread and butter players like a Frank Gore or somebody, like John Brown who's going to get you a first down on 3rd down. But I think Devin Singletary has the capability of being dynamic in this offense, and I think he should be utilized more.
Chris, let me get you, we're thinking about, where are the offensive weapons? Where's the weaponry coming from? And this is down the depth chart a little bit, but I wonder what you think goes into the calculation of Robert Foster or Isaiah McKenzie, how they make that determination, who's up this week, who plays this week, and what this guy can do for our offense that this guy might do better. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think it hinges on game plan and matchups. I think if they feel that they're playing against a slower defense at the 2nd level, then I think it's a McKenzie game because they can use some of those jet sweeps and get him out on the flank to bend the corner and get yards for them that way in what is considered a high percentage play because you're essentially handing it to him behind the line of scrimmage. Whereas if you feel you've got a secondary that can be compromised, maybe it's a Robert Foster game because he can get behind the defense a little bit more effectively, and his size allows him to make plays deep down the sideline, where I think that's a tougher play for Isaiah McKenzie to make just by his stature more than anything else. And just taking a peek here today at practice, we've seen Robert Foster getting a lot of reps early in practice with special teams, and we know he has a role there now. So if he's playing with the first special teams unit, could it be a sign that he'll be up on Sunday? We'll have to wait and see.
One of the frustrating things, I think, for fans is that you see Robert Foster out there. You see we saw Robert Foster the second half of last year and do the things that kept him on the squad and made people intrigued by his talent. And then we also see Isaiah McKenzie doing the jet sweeps and doing some things, explosive plays on the ground game. But then even though whichever one of those guys is active, they're only getting 4 or 5 snaps a game offensively. They're not getting on the field that much even when they're active. They're more of a safety valve, depth kind of thing, and they're a special teams weapon. So I think a lot of fans are frustrated by what they perceive is, I don't know, what do you think? Is it a lack of the desire to try for the big play, to try the deep ball? Or, why is it that, fans are frustrated by the lack of use of Isaiah McKenzie and Robert Foster?
I just think it's a reliability thing. It's clear to me that they feel they can trust John Brown and Cole Beasley chiefly to deliver them positive plays in the passing game, and for the most part they have. And so what happens is you go down, it's a trickle-down effect, so that means less opportunity for the guys that are a little further back on the depth chart. And so now what you have in the scope of a specific game plan, if you have McKenzie up that week, there's a small package of plays that you'll turn to where McKenzie is on the field, and he's probably going to get the football. And by the same token, Robert Foster falls into that category as well, where, yes, we want to take maybe 3 deep shots in this game, and when we do, we're going to have Robert Foster on the field because we feel he's one of the best guys at winning deep and getting behind defenses. They just haven't hit on those where they've made as much of an impact, say, as they have with McKenzie, which, as I said earlier, is a higher percentage play, an easier one to execute at the outset at least.
Talking about Chris Brown, Bills insider from BuffaloBills.com. He's on the sidelines as the Bills have their practice started, getting set for Sunday's game against Washington. We've tiptoed all around the offense, Chris, but we got to get to the main man, Josh Allen. And look, I love Josh, and I think he's going to be a successful quarterback here for a long time. But he's got to play better, quite frankly, and it's got to start soon. We're at midseason again.
Right, and I think the ball security issues have reared its ugly head again, unfortunately for him. Got a lot of, 3 fumbles last week. He fortunately only lost 1 of them, but even that's too many. So, I think what you have is a guy that's got to make a concerted effort to hold on to the football. I think his decision-making on the whole has improved in terms of what to do with the ball when he's back to pass, but ball security resurfaced as an issue, so he's got to get that corrected most definitely.
Can I say? I think it's more than that. I want to know, at least feel like he's seeing everything he needs to see, and that's hard to watch a game as a spectator and determine. But you know what I mean? I want to make sure he's not missing opportunities downfield, and sometimes I wonder about that.
And I know you and I talked about this earlier in the week. There were times in the game last week where the offensive line, to their credit, gave him a nice clean pocket and plenty of time to survey the field, and he was still patting the ball a little bit at times. And there were certain things that he missed, and maybe his progression reads didn't allow him to see some things that were there for the taking. Tyler Kroft's corner route, a perfect example, but I think his progressions took him the other way to scan the field left to right, and Kroft was on his right and had won the route immediately. So there are certain things at work that we just don't know about because we don't know the true X's and O's of a given play. But I think ball security is at the top of the list for him. And then second after that is maybe improving the rate of making the right call. And even Josh told us this last week when I wrote a story about how he's improving in some of his pre-snap recognition skills, which he undoubtedly is. You can debate to what degree he's improving in that area, but he is improving. And the first thing he said was, I know there's still things out there that I have not seen that are going to cross me up, and he's just going to have to improvise until he masters those elements. And that's the maturation of a young quarterback. And I still think we have to all remember, fans and media analysts alike, that he's still on that track. He's not at the top of the mountain yet. He's still climbing to where he wants to be as a proven quarterback that more often than not is going to win on given Sundays when going against a defense that can get complex or exotic.
I want it now, Chris.
Thanks, Brownie.
I know what I want, and I want it now. Thanks, Chris.
You got it, guys.